Over the past couple months, I've been reading a lot of manga. More specifically, manga recommended by you guys, my subscribers. Last year I made a video where I read 50 of your recommendations, and this year I decided to up the ante and read a total of 60. The rules were simple, recommendations weren't strictly limited to manga, and I would only have to read the first 10 chapters. A rule that, as some of you might remember, I did not follow at all last year, as I went slightly overboard by 1,902 chapters. However, this time around, I managed to keep my curiosity in check. Why is it going up? Oh, for fuck. I go by the name of Delusional for a reason. Some of you recommended me absolute bangers, from manga to manhwa to webtoons to hentai to whatever this is, while others recommended me the most putrid pieces of literature they could find. No joke, I wish I could go back to the days when Supercock Showdown was the only thing that kept me up at night. Here's a list of what I'll be reading. If you want extra details like how many chapters of a series I read, or if I plan to finish it, there's a Google Sheet linked down in the description. As always, feel free to jump around the video's timestamps. And finally, shout out Alex, who I've now stolen this video idea from twice. Get comfy and grab your favorite snack because it's going to be even longer than last time, and we're starting it off with a little bit of a banger.
A little different than all the rest. I'm quite old-fashioned where I had sometimes played chess. And when I'm out, I'm looking for that vintage fling.
My experience with the Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity is interesting. I actually first tried reading it over a year ago when looking to pick up some new romance manga. However, after getting through its first chapter, I quickly labeled it as just another Romeo and Juliet derivative, a type of story that I actually quite enjoy, but wasn't looking for at the time. I decided to come back to it later. A complete mistake, because if I had just read until chapter 5, I would have realized that I was missing out on peak. By chapter 5, our Romeo and Juliet, Karuko and Rintaro's relationship with one another is found out by Karuko's best friend, Subaru. Concerned for her best friend, Subaru ends up secretly meeting up with Rintaro, demanding that he immediately cuts off ties with Karuko completely. Now, I've read my fair share of romance manga, so much so that I knew exactly what type of plot progression this scene would lead to. A 20+ chapter misunderstanding or some unnecessary drama that would hinder the progression of the main couple, but I was completely wrong. Instead, in response to Subaru's request, Rintaro stares directly back at her and says, "Nah, I'd win," purple hollowing her to oblivion, or at least the romance universe equivalent of it. Rintaro understands Subaru's concern for her best friend, but he doesn't back down. In his heart, he knows that if his relationship with Karuko is found out, it might ruin her reputation, yet he knows that not seeing each other isn't what either of them want. So he acts selfishly and tells Subaru, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." And that's exactly when I knew this manga was going to be different. Through butterfly-inducing interactions, its beautiful art, and well-paced progression, The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity has quickly become one of my favorite romance manga of all time. And it doesn't stop there. It's more than a romance manga. Rintaro is 6'3" with blonde hair and piercings. Your average Japanese person looks at him and starts quaking in their boots. Up until very recently, he's had no friends. Bullied as a child for being the son of a cake shop owner, his ostracization only got worse when he got taller, dyed his hair, and got his ears pierced. All of these negative experiences have caused Rintaro to build a protective shell around his heart. He isn't easily able to open up to others. However, with this new group of friends he's made, that shell has finally begun to crack. In a particular chapter, they've all gathered at his house, and when his dyed hair is brought into question, he nervously laughs off the reason. He changed his look simply because he once saw a foreign cake shop owner with blonde hair and piercings smiling ear to ear while making cakes. And at a time where he was extremely lonely and had pretty much given up on enjoying life, that sight spoke to him. He hoped that one day he would also be able to smile exactly like him. Hearing this story, Rintaro's friends don't laugh with him or at him or even offer any pitiful remarks. They simply say, those people who didn't give you the time of day back then don't know what they missed out on. Alongside Rintaro's mom, who clearly dyed her hair in support of her son, crying as she listens into this exchange, got to me. The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity is filled with nothing but wholesome moments like these, and has been nothing but a pleasure to read. So thank you, Hades, for recommending me it. Our next recommendation is from TiimoLeThermo, who asked me to check out DeadTube, claiming that it's wholesome fun for the entire family. Tim, just a quick question. Exactly what part of this Forsaken manga is fun? Is it when or is it when? Because I don't know, Tim, those don't sound too fun to me. I would like to request my 2 hours back. The Freddy Fazbear Island arc is one of the worst murder mysteries I have ever read. If you somehow make it past 30 chapters, they need to call in all the top neuroscientists around the globe to study your brain, because you are a different breed of human. Do not read this, it is not worth it. Our next manga is After School Lessons for Unripe Apples, which was recommended by Miku. This is a very slow burn romance. Watching the relationship between the two main characters is honestly like trying to thaw an iceberg with a single match. We're gonna be here for a while. But every drop of liquid extracted from that iceberg is like the elixir of life. There also might be a couple parasites in it. That's okay though. Even though it's a slow burn, you'll never feel like anything is paced poorly. The progression and development of each character feels completely natural and aligns with the stupid yet goofy antics high schoolers often go through. This is a very rewarding romance that will have you smiling all the way through. If you're familiar with the manhwa Cheese in the Trap, this was written by the same author, so you know you're in good hands. The next recommendation is from Yahal, who recommended Girls Last Tour. She and Yu are traversing a post-apocalyptic world with nothing but a gun, ammo, and a small tank. A pretty insane premise that I thought was completely comedic, especially with the dynamic established between the two. But every so often, the work hits you with a panel that highlights the gravity of their situation. She and Yu might be the last two people left on this planet. And the longer you read, the more the sentimentality overpowers the comedy, until it finally hits you. It was in the title the entire time. What you're reading is the girls' last tour. Faced with such a desolate and confusing world, it would be understandable, easy for the two of them to lose hope, to give up. Yet, she and Yu never do. They keep traversing upward, moving forward, always finding something to smile at. This is a story about two people born at the wrong time, trying to make the most out of their unlucky life in the shitty world they were born into. And watching their determination to continue on in the face of everything fills you with an indescribable amount of hope. The next manga comes from the man who is named Dave, who recommended Annie to Imouto no Shitai Koto, which in English translates to brother and sister doing what they really want to do. To describe the manga simply, the brother and sister do things they really want to do. What are those things, you might ask? Pretty normal stuff, like going on runs together, going to cafes, watching scary movies, and having sex. Let's just say curiosity killed the cat, and I now regret having eyeballs. What the fuck, Dave? Japan is back at it again with their smoking propaganda. First it was smoking behind the supermarket, and now it's can't catch the shimmering smoke. One more manga like this and it's actually game over for my lungs. There's something about characters like Miyako that activate the neurons in my small monkey brain. It doesn't have too many chapters out right now, but it's a romance between two college students, and the manga world could always use more romances with an older cast. At least for now, none of your typical rom-com tropes or drama are present, and the interactions between the two are super sweet. Although, I want to say this for the sake of the main character, and I'm not hating, I want to see my boy succeed. But at their aquarium date, where Miyako is dressed up like this, bro shows up in socks, sandals, and a fucking bucket hat. This isn't a drunk fishing trip with the boys, lock the f*** in. Also, you know how getting a single double spread in a chapter is normally considered a luxury? In one of the latest chapters, there were 4 double spreads back to back to back to back, and they're absolutely gorgeous. The author is straight up flexing on everyone at this point. Hideo Suzuki is a failing, aspiring manga artist. Ever since his first series was axed over a decade ago, he hasn't been able to regain his footing. He's dissatisfied, anxious, and stressed to the point where he's become schizophrenic. extremely schizophrenic. His only outlet to relieve all this stress is to go shooting. I don't know how a schizophrenic got his hands on a Beretta, especially in Japan, but he somehow did it. And this hobby ends up turning the tide of Hideo's life forever when a zombie virus suddenly breaks out. Hideo not only gets the chance to finally become the main character of his own life, but to become a hero. This next one comes from Wrecker, and they recommended The Hero's Party Wants to Experience Love. In this manga's fantasy world, heroes are summoned all the time. However, the problem is, the Demon Lord has already been defeated. So what happens when you give all the people you summoned the opportunity to return home if they want to? Only the dregs of society remain. You're left with people that want muscle girl succubi. You're left with people who want to watch car dragon sex. What does that even mean? In this now peaceful world, it's up to the party who actually defeated the Demon Lord, ironically consisting of only people from their world, to clean up the summoned hero's messes and keep them in control. Take, for example, one summoned hero who starts throwing a tantrum because he can't have a harem anymore, and he's kinda spinning facts in some of these panels, but the way they subjugate him is simultaneously ridiculous and genius. The mage of the party quickly hydrates and dehydrates the seams of the hero's clothing, resulting in rapid shrinkage, and he zeroes in on the groin area, which you can imagine is an instant one-shot. I think this panel sums up the manga perfectly. You are going to see some really dumb stuff when reading this, but it always is going to be fun. The next recommendation is from Michal, who recommended Blank Space. This manga follows two social outcasts, Shoko and Sui, who after meeting end up quickly bonding with each other. But don't be deceived by its cutesy art style or tame start, because Sui has the ability to create any object with her mind as long as she understands how it works internally, and the objects she creates are only visible to her. Her creations start off harmless, from an umbrella to protect herself from the rain, to balloons to pop to ease her anxiety. However, faced with bullying, loneliness, and a growing hatred for the world, her creations start getting darker and darker. Shoko is the only thing tethering Sui to sanity, and while trying to convince her to stop escalating her creations, a bigger picture starts forming in the town. This is a great coming-of-age story that tackles themes not normally covered in manga. Definitely give it a shot if it interests you. If you haven't been living under a rock for the past couple of years, you've probably heard of a franchise called Bocchi the Rock. But what a lot of people don't know is that the best character from the show, I will not back down on this, has her own manga now. Although it's from Kikuri's point of view, it's still in the world of Bocchi, so there are going to be times where scenes align with the animes, like when they first met or at Bocchi's school festival. However, since it's told from Kikuri's point of view, it still feels refreshing as heck. We also get to see what she was up to right before she met Bocchi, what she does in her spare time, and what she does with her other bandmates. Get absolutely plastered at all occurrences of the day. There's this chapter where she forcibly drags her bandmates to a boat race betting place. Despite Shima's disapproval, she bets her last 500 yen on a parlay, and against all odds, she wins big, like 500 onikoros big. But instead of cashing out her winnings like any smart person, my goat continues to gamble until she doubles her winnings entirely. And then she loses all of it, drunk the entire way through. And all I have to say in response to that is absolute cinema. This next one is from JX1, who recommended Bakuon Rettou. This is Tokyo Revengers if it wasn't complete dog shit. And it's probably because the work is entirely autobiographical. Everything you see in the story, the author went through himself. His shaky relationship with his parents, his longing to belong to something greater, the invincibility he felt when he first joined the gang, the naivety that he could do it forever, and the anger, sadness, and regret he felt when really bad things happened as a result of being part of the gang. He lived through all of it. That's why every character feels so convincing, why every struggle he goes through feels so real, and why every emotion in the work feels so raw. The author doesn't glorify the world of biker gangs, nor does he vilify it. He presents it exactly how it was. The cool aspects are cool, and the bad aspects are bad, leaving it completely up to the reader to form their own opinion on its story, its characters, and biker gangs, resulting in one of the greatest delinquent mangas I've read, which I much preferred over Takamichi crying every 3 panels. Our next manga is The Titan's Bride, which was recommended by Ellebazimi. I legit cannot show you a single panel from this manga because it's straight up hardcore yaoi. It definitely did not help that the body size difference between the two main characters is quite large, but I think my enjoyment was mainly hindered by the fact that I'm not gay. If this is your type of thing, go for it, but if you instead want to learn more about the community and the types of struggles LGBTQ people go through, I highly recommend Our Dreams at Dusk or Blue Flag or... wait, what day was it again? Oh, it's not June anymore. Scratch everything I just said. I didn't like it because I'm straight up homophobic. Yoshiki is in love with his best friend Hikaru, but always planned on taking those feelings to the grave. He never thought they would be reciprocated. Yet, ever since Hikaru returned after going missing in the mountains half a year ago, he's begun to reciprocate them. While this fills Yoshiki with an inexplicable amount of happiness, there is but a single issue. The person standing before him acts exactly like Hikaru. He laughs like him, speaks like him, and has all his memories, yet there is something eerily off about him. After all, there has to be. Hikaru's very existence is an impossibility. Yoshiki saw it with his very own eyes. On that mountain half a year ago, Hikaru died. So, what exactly is this creature staring into his eyes? Torn between his love and scared of the implicit threats made by the fake Hikaru, Yoshiki's emotions and decisions are a complete mess. Should he try to confront the truth or continue clinging onto the comfort of his best friend's familiar presence? There is something sinister happening in this town, and Yoshiki is about to be thrown in the middle of all of it. Our next recommendation is from Blaynp, who recommended Bloom Into You. Up until this video, my experience with Yuri manga has been pretty limited. My first encounter was with Strawberry Panic, which besides its banger opening, was not my cup of tea. And while I love the absolute trainwreck Citrus was, I wouldn't say it had the best writing. From the very start, I could tell Bloom Into You was going to be different. Romances of all kinds need to take notes on how it uses drama. It's never forced to prolong a plot point or randomly added to speedrun character development. It's rarely there, and when it is, it's carefully crafted through numerous chapters. There's some great stuff about perfection and meeting everyone's expectations. It was well written, had amazing paneling, only stayed for as long as necessary, and wrapped up with a satisfying conclusion. I get why people consider Bloom Into You the GOAT of Yuri manga. Our next manga is Please Put These On Takamine-san, which was recommended by Touching Grass, which is exactly what I need to do after reading this manga because its premise is about a guy whose entire job is to take the underwear off the student council president when she makes a mistake because it reverses time, allowing her to remedy her mistake and keep up her perfect appearance. I'll keep it a stack. This manga sucks. But its charm and experience are perfectly summed up by none other than Assman162, who after an awful chapter said, "The internal battle between dogshit writing and great art continues." Our next recommendation is Ama Cinderella, which was recommended by YatoSama, who claims it's a masterpiece. Which is probably the funniest thing they could have said after recommending a harem manga. I want to make it clear that I'm not dunking on Yato at all. My first ever manga was Nisekoi. This is right up my alley. But the stark contrast of their Guts profile picture and them calling a simple harem manga a masterpiece is hilarious. It's like those memes of ripped guys working out at the gym listening to music, which everyone expects to be some high intense BPM songs, when in reality they're actually just listening to fauna ASMR. And I can't help but wonder if the axing of this manga after only 26 chapters was Yato's equivalent of the eclipse. If it was, I have a message for you, Yato. It's going to be okay. Thoughts are probably swarming your mind at the moment. You might be thinking that never again will you be able to watch the sunset and be calm. Never again will you find something as good as Ama Cinderella, but it's out there somewhere. Persevere. One day you'll find it. And I have a weird feeling it might be called The Cafe Terrace and its Goddesses, because I swear it is pretty much the same manga. The next manga comes from Ashran, who recommended Will You Marry Me Again If You're Reborn. It follows an old, happy, married couple reminiscing about their past, their first faithful meeting, their small, meaningless bickering, the blissful time they spent together. It shows how they helped each other in times of need, and how even when you are put in a situation that seems hopeless or suffocates you with despair, one day, hopefully that suffering will pass, and you'll be able to find a place where you can truly be happy. But then it switches back to the present, painfully reminding you that time is ticking. What this manga does best is encapsulate a certain bittersweet feeling. It's hard to exactly describe in words, best experienced firsthand. As Kaoru looks at her husband lying in a hospital bed, her mind is flooded with memories. These memories fill her with nothing but joy, but as soon as their runtime reaches their end, her clouded eyes start to clear, her gaze slowly but surely fixating on the man responsible for them, reduced to his physically weakest state. And there's nothing she can do about it. The person that gave her so much, who alone made her life worth living, is going to die soon and leave her behind. In the face of this truth, she wants to run away, to stop visiting him because it's painful. Yet she knows that if she stops, even if it brings her less pain right now, she'll not only regret it for herself, but for him. Because if there is one thing she can do for the person who she loves more than anyone else in the world in this moment, is to stay by his side. Stay by his side and hope that he'll stay on this earth for even just a second longer. I know I made this manga sound sad, and it definitely is, but a majority of it will genuinely put a smile on your face. If you like romance stories, you will not regret reading this. Our next manga is from Mario, and they recommended Kimi no Koe, which is actually from the same author as Will You Marry Me Again. Kazunari has the ability to hear the thoughts of other people, and while this might seem like an appealing power, it's come at a price. Although he can hear what others truly think, and it stops him from being taken advantage of, for that very same reason, long has he given up on forging meaningful relationships. He now dedicates himself to success, utilizing his power to do so. In his latest scheme, he plans to marry the daughter of a noble family to secure funding for his company. However, when his marriage proposal is accepted and he finally meets Nana, he finds out that he can't read her mind at all, which is most likely because as a neglected, abused child, Nana cannot read, write, or speak. What starts off as a marriage with ulterior intentions slowly turns into real love. Watching the both of them finally being able to find a person they can trust with every ounce of their being is the sweetest thing ever. The author really knows how to cook, and for this manga in particular, they crafted a Michelin 3-star meal, prepared it with the finest ingredients, and then threw it in a pan. The problem is though, they left it in the pan for a little too long, and it caught on fire. Not only that, but an earthquake hits, the stove explodes, and then the second plane hits the tower. Because for some reason, the author decided that they were writing a little too well and recently pulled the amnesia trope out of nowhere and has her girl looking like this. And I swear, if we get a bad ending, you will rue this day, Morinaga Miku. Our next recommendation is from Gosher, who asked me to read Kindergarten Wars. With the title with kindergarten in it, I was not expecting the opening 2 pages to have this many dead bodies. This manga is about former assassins who, after being caught and arrested, now protect high-profile children from other assassins at a kindergarten in exchange for lowering their sentences. Rita is one of those people, and when it comes to killing, she's the top of the brass. You won't find anyone else more skilled than her. However, she has one major flaw. She falls in love very easily. Thankfully, she also falls out of love very easily, taking the concept of the worst thing she can say is no to the next level. It's a bona fide comedy, is what I would say if this manga didn't have a dial that it sometimes turns to gay mode. I haven't seen a series that can tonally shift this well since Gintama. Highly recommend. It's also tied with 100 Girlfriends as the most painful series to translate. Our next manga is from Eietilohlor, who recommended Shinju no Nectar. It's interesting because in this isekai world, there is a clear magic system that coexists with science. You will see magic versus guns, magic versus tanks, and magics versus blimps. At times, there is good world building, character writing, and fights. Yet, on the other hand, the main character gets his powers by sucking on boobs. This truly feels like High School DxD all over again. Decent plot with decent plot. Robert Johnson is considered one of the most influential magicians of the 20th century. He's the first member of the 27 Club, a group of famous legendary magicians who have all happened to die at the age of 27. Yet, there isn't a lot of verifiable information on him. His life is shrouded in mystery, his name accompanied by a countless number of myths. The biggest being that he sold his soul to the devil in order to play the blues. In Me and the Devil Blues, Akira Hiramoto takes the life of Robert Johnson, all the truths, lies, and myths, and spins it into a gripping, intense narrative. One of the things Robert Johnson has been reported to do was face the wall whenever he performed. Some speculate it might have been because he was stage shy, while others claim it might have been for the acoustics. Hiramoto twists this information in his favor, making it seem like what Robert was actually trying to do was hide this hand. Absolutely genius. Surprisingly, the blues don't happen too often in this manga. It's more about the absolutely horrific things African American people had to go through in the early 1900s. I'm super sad this one is on indefinite hiatus and has no plans of coming back due to licensing issues. Yet, the most unbelievable part I found while researching the reason behind its hiatus. Akira Hiramoto is the same man who made Prison School. Don't get me wrong, I like Prison School, but when you go from a heavy, serious story that has more slurs in each chapter than a Twitter thread to Prison School, the whiplash is crazy. Our next recommendation is from 12 Times, who asked me to read Needy Girl Overdose Run With My Sick. This manga is based off a video game with a similar name that many of you are probably familiar with. If you aren't, the basic rundown is that this person is a streamer and has a couple mental problems that her manager tries to take care of. After reading the 5 chapters of this manga and watching her manager fail to keep her under control, I actually ended up buying the game myself, all under the pretense that I could do better, that I, me, myself, could fix her. But after watching her take too many happy pills for the 5th time in a row, I quickly came to the conclusion that I'm no different. I can't fix her. I don't think anyone can. Since Yamada lost his daughter years ago, he's completely lost hope in life. He's an empty shell, meaninglessly going through the motions to perform his job as a police inspector. However, when a case of shutting down an underage prostitution ring comes up, his life is forever shaken, because one of the girls in the ring is the splitting image of his deceased daughter. After learning that the girl has run away from home multiple times, her stark similarity to his daughter becomes a poison that makes it impossible for him to not reach out and help her, especially when he blames himself for his daughter's passing. To him, it's almost as if God is giving him a sign. At first, he views her as a replacement, and while it initially suffices as a way for him to unhealthily escape from reality, the longer they spend together healing each other's wounds, the more he realizes that she's not a replacement, and in turn helps him accept his own daughter's passing. Do not worry, there are never any weird developments in their relationship. This manga is a very heavy read that realistically portrays the harsh world some people have to grow up in. And since it's so realistic, even though a lot of healing has happened, the ending is looking to be extremely bittersweet. But that doesn't make this manga any less great. Our next one comes from Peyton, who asked me to read The Guy She Was Interested In Wasn't a Guy at All. It's extremely hard to have a hobby you love, but no one to share it with. My favorite kind of conversation to have with anyone is a long drawn-out yap session about things we both like or enjoy. The type of conversation that usually runs until 4 a.m. in the morning. I always leave those conversations a bit tired, and with the lingering thought that I probably should have wrapped up things hours earlier. But I also always close my eyes feeling completely satisfied and validated. It's probably why in turn, watching these two slowly grow closer to each other through their mutual love for music leaves me with that same sense of satisfaction. Also, the amount of skill necessary to use a single color, make it look this good, and use it to enhance the emotions in this manga is, well, actually I have no clue, I can't draw for shit, but probably really hard. Every month we fall further behind Weekly Young Jump. At this rate, we will never catch up. One Punch Man is selling too well. We need to do something, and we need to do it now.
If I may.
Go ahead.
What about One Punch Man, but with cocks?
That already exists. I read that stuff all the time. Just search up One Punch Man Rule 30.
I'm not talking about those cocks. Here, take a look at this.
This is it. I can only imagine this is how the internal talks went over at Monthly Comic Heroes when they greenlit this manga. Yet the craziest thing is, it works. It's got great fights, great art, comedy, and even feels. Never did I think I would recommend a manga about juiced up super roosters killing giant demons, but here we are. Our next recommendation is from John Jetto, who recommended Pokemon Festival of Champions. Growing up, I never had a Nintendo console. Before I switched over to PC, gaming in my early childhood consisted of Ratchet & Clank, Ape Escape, and the GOAT, Little Big Planet. Aside from watching a couple of movies and buying a couple of trading cards, I never experienced the world of Pokemon to its fullest. It's not that I'm a complete stranger to the franchise, I just don't have any nostalgic attachment to it. Now that I'm older and can arguably go buy these consoles and games myself, when I see the same game released every year that looks decades behind on innovation and can be beaten easily with 3 thumbs up my behind, I'm not that interested. I went into this manga not knowing what to expect, and I came out of it quite the fan. I want you to look at these 2 panels side by side. This is the type of story it tells. There's an entire Pokemon ecosystem. Bigger Pokemon bully and hunt other Pokemon. There are hierarchies, and most importantly, they have feelings. When a Pokemon is abused by humans, that trauma stays with them. Each character brims with personality. There is backstory, world building, motivation. Red's mom actually cares when he leaves the house unannounced. And Red actually acts like an 11-year-old, scared of the massive world that's out there, but still has a burning desire to explore. And Team Rocket is a criminal syndicate composed of your average Pal World players. If you are a fan of the Pokemon franchise, read this manga. Otherwise, you are doing yourself a disservice. Our next recommendation is from author who recommended Four Cut Hero. The main character is basically Kazuma if he chose to take a cheat ability instead of a useless goddess, and was also twice as much of a degenerate, which at this point, I don't even know how that's possible. The manhwa is filled with a lot of funny moments with great comedic timing. However, if you treat it as only a comedy, its overarching plot will creep up on you. I seriously did not expect the plot or world to build up as much as it did. Do not let Twitter find this manga though. They already hate Konosuba enough, and this one will definitely piss them off even more. Ever since I covered Bibliomania in one of my videos, there has been this unsatisfiable void in my heart. Bibliomania's ability to explore human nature, desires, and escapism through its unsettling art style and narrative is something no other manga I've read has been able to replicate until now. Wizard Pilgrim is an absolute fever dream. Every single chapter is filled with a number of panels that showcase its ambitious creative nature. Its concept of having wizards, people who get their wishes or desires cruelly granted in a fashion parallel to a monkey's paw, was fascinating. So, I'm extremely salty right now, because for some reason, this manga was published in a shoujo magazine. I don't have anything against shoujo, but can you imagine someone on their way to pick up their favorite magazine B-logs for romance, and absolute nightmare fuel? Sure, there's an overlap in those demographics, but not nearly enough because the series was axed after only 10 chapters. And it's such a shame because you cannot look at a panel like this or this and not have a million questions running through your mind about its world and the wizards. There is a garden of vertebrae planted in the ground with the brains on top of them, a spiral staircase that leads to a Dark Souls boss. That is so fucking cool. Regardless, it's still really early on in Shida's career, and I hope we see more for them very soon. I will be there no matter what. The next recommendation comes from Sandbag, who asked me to read Full Night. Giant dense clouds in the sky have blocked out the sun for over a century, shrouding the world in eternal darkness. Humanity's survival now hinges on a scientific breakthrough called transformation, a procedure that turns human bodies into plants that can survive with little light over the course of 2 years. However, despite humanity's perseverance, the darkness above has spread deep into society, infecting the hearts and world of the remaining populace. Kamiya is engulfed in that darkness. Working 14-hour shifts in a factory, the only place that would hire a high school dropout, Kamiya makes less than minimum wage. He struggles to afford the bare necessities to live and definitely cannot afford the medication necessary for his mentally ill mother. Resigned, his soul crushed by hopelessness, he turns to a last resort. For ethical reasons, the government only does transformation on people who are terminally ill, and as compensation, they'll give those undergoing the procedure 10 million yen. So Kamiya starts drinking industrial industrial wastewater until he's plagued with over 150 toxic chemicals and bacteria. With the 10 million yen, he'll finally be able to enjoy his shitty life, albeit the last 2 years. At least that was the plan, until all of his money was immediately stolen from him after the procedure. However, he also discovers that he can understand the emotions of plants around him, leading to him landing a government job, and what comes from that job is a bumpy, insane ride that I don't want to take away from anyone. This manga is so damn cool and creative. There is so much world building and insane shit that happens. Our next one is The Man Who Saved Me on My Isekai Trip Was a Killer, which is recommended by Ankit. This one might look a bit familiar to some of you because it's actually the source material of a trailer that made its rounds 2 years ago that everyone thought was for a very well-produced saucy anime, but only ended up being a promotion for the original source. And after reading it, I'm kinda glad it didn't get that anime because I think the main character would be one of the first invites to a Diddy party. Our next recommendation is from Night Song, who recommended Tacit. I'm pretty sure reading I Am a Hero has completely ruined my ability to enjoy pretty much any other zombie story. If it doesn't have that insanely creative first-person paneling, or a man reloading his only means of survival every 2 shots, or a 4chan form reacting to the apocalypse in real time, it's hard to get into it. Unless it subverts the genre like Zom 100, or has cool monsters like Sweet Home, I'm not that interested in it. Tacit is probably decent, but I blame justacommenter for turning my taste in zombie manga into an elitist, and you should too. Our next manga is Beat in Motion, which is recommended by Dianjus. Tatsuhiko has long given up on his dream of becoming an animator. Now in college, he curses those with talent, mindlessly going about his days. One night while bitterly drinking away at a party, his frustration, envy, and lingering regret bubbles up when a friend tells him he's going to win an award in the next 5 years. Tatsuhiko completely and utterly mocks him, but a girl who overhears their conversation is not having it. After throwing up on him, this enigma of a person calls him a loser, tries to punch him, almost gets him isekai'd, and then tells him he should be glad that he almost died today. When Tatsuhiko finally arrives home, the girl's remarks ripping into his soul, he stares at his reflection in the mirror and can't stand the person looking back at him. Something needs to change. I think collectively, people tend to be afraid to try things they are interested in. They either become too scared of how others might perceive them, or a failure. As someone who was once guilty of both, I think this manga shows that none of those fears matter. Tatsuhiko decides it's time to stop running away and throws himself headfirst into the world of drawing again, instantly rekindling his love for the medium. Later at his college lecture, when his friends see him practicing and asks him if he draws, he hesitates before answering. One of the main reasons why he gave up on his dream in the first place was because of the disapproval of others. And despite his newly formed resolve to properly chase after his dream, there's still a part of him that's afraid of what other people think. Yet expecting ridicule, instead he's met with praise. No matter where you are in a skill or goal, there will always be someone out there who dismisses you and your efforts, but when you dedicate time into something you're passionate about, people can tell. I've gotten extremely lucky with my channel, but if I never made that shitty Demon Slayer video back in 2019, or that Minecraft Let's Play video when I was 9, or wrote that cringy light novel, this channel would not be what it is today. I used to look at my 0 view videos, that novel that no one read, as failures. Whenever I quit something I invested time into, or didn't seem to have talent in, I would regret even trying it in the first place. But the older I get, the more naive I realize that frame of mindset is. Everything in your life is part of this compounding, growing experience. You never lose anything. Today, the only regrets I have are the times when I half-assed learning or creating something, or when I pretended not to care, when in actuality, I did. All because I was afraid of appearing a bit foolish to others. Go out there, chase that dream. If you find out it isn't what you wanted or imagined, that's fine. When you eventually find that next thing, you'll realize how important everything that led to this point was. I think Beat in Motion perfectly encapsulates that idea, and to boot, sprinkles in some romance, and I absolutely love it for that. Our next recommendation is from Joho, who recommended One Piece with the request that I read up to chapter 374. Brother, I can't just drop everything and read 374 chapters. I have an entire video to make that's already like... Joho, you're a bad person, and I don't like you. This next one is from Vu, who recommended Double Click, claiming that it's a lot better than Protocol Rain, meaning that the bar starts in hell. However, DoubleClick doesn't just get over that bar, it sets a new standard for what a fictional esports story should be. Unlike Protocol Rain, instead of focusing on a sister who loves her brother a little too much and a rival who wants to have children with the main character, DoubleClick decides to focus on the esports aspect, practicing scrimming and playing in tournaments. A big surprise, I know. It even has bits about streaming and getting scouted by professionals. The author clearly knows their stuff, and although it's not the type of competitive game I personally play, the manhwa does a great job showcasing the world and some of the intricacies surrounding esports. Our next manga is from Gray, who asked me to read Rosengarten Saga. This is simultaneously the worst and best manga I have ever read. To give you an idea of what I mean, early on there is this tournament arc, which is dope. I love tournament arcs. However, let's just say all the characters in this story are a bit eccentric. For example, one of the characters fights by triple-wielding swords, but he doesn't hold the third blade in his mouth like Zoro, or even in between his ass cheeks. His third sword is built into his body itself, located specifically between his legs, and there is a reason why I can't show you a panel of it. And the catch is, he's one of the tamer characters. I knew that when making this video, there was going to be at least one manga that would absolutely obliterate me emotionally, but what I never expected was for the culprit to be a Yuri manga. When I finished Bloom Into You, I thought I had found the peak of the genre and nothing else would top it, but boy was I wrong. The Summer You Were There is a sentimental piece touching on heavy topics that I'm not going to delve into the details of because I think V-Mark put it perfectly. It's better to go into this manga blind. I'll just say, if you like stories like A Silent Voice, Makia, Your Lie in April, or Pancreas, in other words, if you're an emotional masochist, this is right up your alley. A warning though, you will need a box of tissues, and no matter how much you prepare or brace yourself, it won't be enough. Our next manga comes from Kevin, who recommended, "Since I've entered the world of romantic comedy manga, I'll do my best to make the losing hero unhappy." All of you have probably read at least one series involving a love triangle or something larger and gotten sad when your favorite girl doesn't win. This author took that feeling to heart and decided, fuck it, if my girl can't win, I'll make her win myself. It's not that bad, however, since the manga only has 8 chapters out and is currently on hiatus, I wouldn't say it's worth your time, especially with Makanai sweeping the anime community by storm last season with its stellar production and source material. In all honesty, Makanai is a much superior version of this type of story. I like the Golden Boy anime a lot. Despite being an absolute degenerate, Kentaro's passion for studying presided over everything else in his life. This drive he had for learning would always eventually lead to winning over the hearts of girls who at first looked down on him, but before anything would happen, he would be gone, headed off in the wind to find something new to learn. It was a simple formula, but exactly what made the anime such a blast to watch. In the manga, Kentaro is still the same old goofball. However, the story after where the anime leaves off quickly turns into what can only be described as hentai. And as you can imagine with this man, it's very, very degenerate. But sadly, it being just pretty much hentai made the series lose its charm for me. Our next recommendation is from Celestial, who recommended Yansha Gal no Anjou-san. This one's your classic Garu falls into love with a loner story. It was fun, but I honestly expected to lose interest after a couple of chapters. That was until I got to chapters 25 and 26. I know that number is a handful more than a couple. I might have a problem. For the most part, Yansha Gal no Anjou-san is a teasing manga. It should be one of those manga you enjoy in the moment and then forget about in the following months. But then it throws in something like dealing with the loss of a pet, or standing up for someone you care about, or dealing with the uncertainty of your future. And as a college student whose dog is getting pretty old, random serious chapters like these turn it into a series that is hard to forget. 6 months ago, Yusuke lost all his memories. Ever since, he's been living a healthy, fun high school life. He has a job, good friends, and a girlfriend. At this point, if he never got his memories back at all, life wouldn't be too bad. However, when strangers start confronting him, alleging he did horrible things to them before he lost his memories, his past becomes a crucial element to uncover. A warning. I'm going to spoil the mystery now, because the first 50 chapters of this manga are a prelude to what I believe makes it special. Think of any revenge story you've read. Think of the most atrocious, horrible things you can do to a person. Yusuke has done all those things to one of his numerous victims at the measly age of 13. Yet ever since he lost his memories, whatever caused him to do these things, to find pleasure in them, that devil inside him is now dormant. For the remainder of the manga, he has to keep living with the weight of his sins on his shoulders, and the fear that at any given moment, that devil might wake back up. The last 20 out of the 154 chapters are spent on an epilogue, something extremely rare for the medium. And at the end of it, you're posed with the question, was there any meaning to Yusuke's life? Or would the world have been better off if he was never born in the first place? I read through the entirety of this manga with disdain for Yusuke. In my eyes, the sins he committed could never and should never be forgiven. All the way to the very end of his story, I never once felt a single ounce of sympathy for him. Yet, when I was faced with this question, I remember staring at my ceiling for several minutes, trying to formulate my answer. Weeks would pass before I came to my conclusion. And that is what I think makes this manga special. The next manga is from Mega Vertex, and they recommended I was reincarnated as the scumbag from an NTR manga, but the heroine is coming on to me. This manga is exactly how its title sounds. It's dumb and ridiculous, yet so stupid that it somehow works. It helps that the person the main character puts in the chair is very unlikable, and that the main character is likable, but I would say a majority of my enjoyment probably comes from this. If you are a fan of Chainsaw Man or Dandadan, drop everything you are doing, turn this video off, and go read After God. You'll thank me later. Need more convincing? I got you. How about a talking flying cat? Female Gojo. Looks-wise, don't expect a hollow purple. This panel is real, and this panel is real. A god who is very addicted to probably fentanyl. At times, I felt like I was reliving some of the moments from the Hayakawa family. I could go on and on about After God's insane narrative, characters, art, and world building, but I'd rather people go into this manga as blind as possible, because when it blows up in a couple of months, everyone will constantly be spoiled anyways if they are on the internet for even remotely a second. Our next one is from Mutant Cat, who recommended I Love Your Cruddy. Considering the track record Yuri has had in this video, I went into this manga optimistic for yet another great read. But then I actually started reading I Love Your Cruddy. Damn. Dude, we're only in chapter 1, they ain't messing around. Wait, what? What? What the f? What do you think I saw? To answer this question, we're going to play a little game. I'm going to vaguely describe a situation, and I want you to let your imagination do the rest. I want you to picture a very famous scene from Chainsaw Man. It involves Himeno, alcohol, and Denji. Now I want you to think of another object that if combined with that scene would make it worse. I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If the object you chose was a pacifier, a cockroach, or any other bodily fluid, congratulations, you're correct. If you thought of a different object, don't worry, you're also probably correct. Because whatever combination you're thinking of, this manga most likely has it in one of its chapters. If the two main characters were put in a mental asylum, they would need a mental asylum for the mental asylum. What the actual fuck? I don't even know how this is legally allowed. And before you say anything, this is not an official collaboration with Minecraft. That manga already exists. Mojang would also never approve of this because survival in another world with my mistress isn't just Minecraft, it's Minecraft with guns and sex mods installed. This is your typical isekai, but instead of giving the MC a level up or cheat ability, his power is that he can do pretty much anything that's possible in Minecraft. He digs down, places blocks, runs faster when he sprints and jumps, easily plants food, crafts items, and defies gravity. He could probably even clear a 1-block vertical for beef if he wanted to. To everyone else, his actions are completely ludicrous. How he straight up bypasses all the laws and physics of the world shatters their minds. This is my favorite type of isekai slop. If you've never played Minecraft, you probably won't enjoy it, but if you have, you will definitely have some fun. I don't know how long this gag will continue to entertain me, but in the latest chapters, he blows up an entire enemy village with TNT, so I'd say it's still going strong. Speaking of Minecraft, this next one follows one of the Minecraft YouTuber community's favorite pastimes, grooming sheep. For this one, you have to keep in mind that this is a historical manga set in Central Asia during the 19th century and stays true to the culture at the time. Okay, here we go. The main couple is an arranged marriage between a 20-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy. Now that we have that out of the way, here's why I think you should still read it. One of my favorite elements about Golden Kamuy is the culture exchange between Aspira and Sugimoto. Watching them intertwine their beliefs and knowledge with each other was interesting. It's the exact same with Oto Megatari. Besides its stellar paneling and art that I want to eat, its biggest strength is its character writing. The main couple aren't the only two characters we follow. In fact, having caught up to the series, I would say that every character is a main character. Manga tends to fall into a trap when trying to represent different cultures. Characters end up one-dimensional or built entirely up of the first results of a Google search. Stuff like that doesn't fly in Otoyo Megatari. There's a clear indication of research and respect for every culture it covers, all through Central Asia and even England. Characters might be from the same culture, but they're their own people and react in different ways to the rules and expectations placed on them. You'll never find two characters who quite think the same way, except for the twins. You don't need to agree with everything it presents. In fact, you definitely shouldn't. But to refuse to even give a good piece of contextual fiction a chance because it has a few elements that make you uncomfortable or you don't agree with makes me sad. Our next manga is Our Miracle, which was recommended by my username is Art. This is basically a reverse isekai. Most of the people who go to a single high school have been involved with each other in a previous life. A cool spin on an overly saturated genre. There was one issue though. I am horrible with Japanese names. I'm pretty sure whenever I see a name in manga, I don't actually read it. Unless I'm strapped to a chair, fed the name audibly and visually, and required to say it back 10 times, I'm not remembering it. So when this manga starts to show several people's past lives at the same time, and a lot of them look like each other, I start getting really confused. This is solely a me problem. I am dumb. Our next manga is Uzazumi no Hate, which was recommended by Reigns. The more manga I read, the more I find that my favorite panels from any series are the ones that showcase views of their world in a single giant double spread. And if I had to choose my favorite of the favorites, it would be panels where the world is collapsing, on the brink of extinction, or already gone. I don't know exactly what draws me to these panels. If I had to pinpoint the reason, I think it would be the reminder that human existence is ephemeral. In Uzazumi no Hate, there's no shortage of these panels. Gaping tall structures highlighting the desolate hopelessness of their world. As I see it, it's very much inspired by Girls Last Tour. However, especially with its latest developments, I'd say it very much leans in its own direction. I'm really excited to see where this one goes. If you like post-apocalyptic worlds, pick this one up. The next recommendation comes from Victor, who asked me to read the documentary of my ex-girlfriend Complex. To put it bluntly, Cairo is sick in the head. It's been several years since his ex broke up with him, yet he still can't get over her. His room is filled with mementos of their past, and every night after work, without fail, he obsessively watches the soul movie he made with her while verbally professing his love. So when his house abruptly burns down, severing the last tie he had to her, he decides it's time to jump off a bridge. However, before he makes that leap, after 7 years of no contact, his ex-girlfriend calls him, asking him to meet up. If you thought Cairo was sick in the head, you aren't ready for his ex. Because Cairo soon learns the reason why his ex wants to meet is because she wants his child, but not through a healthy married relationship or even sex, rather through insemination, which would be fine. However, the kicker is, she wants Cairo to make a movie of the entire process. And at this point, you might be asking yourself, what in the actual fuck are you reading, Delusional? And I agree, but I'm starting to think that some of these manga have done irreparable damage to my brain, because I want to read more. If a publisher could pick this up, or a scanlation group, I would greatly appreciate it. The next one comes from Vavik, who recommended the NPCs in this village sim game must be real. It's about a hikikomori who has received a very realistic looking village sim game through the mail. But the thing is, the game is actually a real fantasy world with real people. Although he thinks it's a game, it doesn't stop him from trying his best to help the villagers' lives. And through helping them, he reintegrates back into society. Overall, a solid manga with a good message. But I didn't like it. The change comes too easily. The main character is perfect. He does everything flawlessly to the point where it's hard to believe why he was even in that situation in the first place, even when a believable explanation is given. One of my favorite anime of all time is Welcome to the NHK, where the schizophrenic NEET, Sato, believes the world is conspiring against him to keep him trapped inside his house, or at least he claims. Deep down, he knows that the problem is rooted within himself, yet no matter what he does, he can't seem to change. Throughout the anime, he takes 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's an uphill battle, and even when he finally reaches the top of that mountain after 24 episodes, there's an even taller mountain standing before him. The author of Welcome to the NHK was a NEET for many years, and even after the success of the work, it took him well over another decade to finally break away from being a shut-in. I'm not saying change needs to take that long or be that hard, but I think presenting it in a way that makes it seem easy only becomes discouraging for the people who have already or do eventually try and don't succeed right away. Or maybe people can change that easily, and it's just a skill issue on my end. The next recommendation is from Globurium, who asked me to read 325479. It's crazy to me that a literal 6-digit recommendation only scratches the surface of the top 5 most degenerate things I've read in this video. And the difference between this and number 4 is not even close. Yamazaki is confident to a fault. He's brazen, intelligent, and funny. Everything he does breaks the traditional mold of a harem MC. He'll cut it to you straight. If you ask him if he's there to see you, he'll say yes. If you kiss him through a book, he's gonna ask why. If you call him a pervert, he'll wear that shit on his chest. When he tries to make someone feel less embarrassed, he starts talking about all the times when he pissed his pants. Although the manga is still filled with tropes, every single one is tackled in a refreshing way. And it's not just Yamazaki that's well written. Many of the girls are equipped with your typical stereotypes, but rather than use the stereotypes as the base of their personalities, the author adds them as flair. It's because before the harem and romantic aspect of this manga, the girls' dreams in their respective fields preside over everything else. It's Yamazaki's unwavering dedication to help the girls achieve their dreams and the girls' determination to work hard alongside them that makes this manga so good. You'll never forget that this is a harem manga, but for everyone, their dreams are in the driver's seat, resulting in great character development, actual reasons for the girls to fall in love with Yamazaki, and at times, honestly, some good advice. Tune Into the Midnight Heart is easily the best harem manga I've read since The World God Only Knows. I have completely changed my mind again. Kangel can indeed be fixed. I think 100 Kangels could be fixed before this girl is. This is the final boss of I Can Fix Her. She is so beyond repair, it's crazy. Our next recommendation is from everyone, because the amount of people who re-recommended Land of the Lustrous was a lot. In last year's video, I only read 10 chapters and had this to say. You can just tell when something is going to be peak. With Land of the Lustrous now completed, I decided that it was finally time to read it all the way through. So, with my head held up high, I can now confirm that it is indeed peak. That's all I gotta say, nothing else. I'm working on a full video for Land. Don't know when it will be out, but if there's any fanbase that is built and trained for long waits, it's definitely the Land fanbase. Please be patient with me. Our next recommendation is from Sabin, who asked me to read Pick Me Up. This is your classic MC gets transported into the world of a game they play. However, unlike other titles, the game is very unforgiving and brutal. It's also a gacha game, and apparently the most popular game in the world, which makes zero sense because if any character dies a single time, they are permanently deleted from your account. You don't get them back. Are you seeing the issue here? When I downloaded Fate Grand Order, I didn't download it because it had intense, riveting, engaging gameplay. I downloaded it because I wanted Saber Alter in a Christmas outfit. I know I'm not the only one who thinks like this. If Genshin Impact implemented this, it might single-handedly start another world war. Besides that, pretty good. Our next manga is Automan, which was recommended by Boom Shakalaka. This one's pretty interesting with great art to back it, but none of that matters because I am and will always be Automan's #1 hater. Not the manga itself, the character. Not because he's a bad person or anything, he's actually really nice. I'm just straight up jealous. He's living every man's dream, and I despise him for having what I don't. Our next recommendation comes from Swoopy, who asked me to read No Home. This manhwa follows a variety of characters navigating through high school as life throws unexpected and oftentimes unfair events at them, whether it be in the past or in the present. It handles trauma of all kinds. It's slow and sometimes methodical, but never boring. A warning, some of the characters are going to leave very bad first impressions, but I guarantee that they'll eventually grow on you. Think Ira from Dawn to Dawn. There are 270 chapters, and up until the very end, many characters are still battling and fighting through their issues. Scars from your childhood are called scars for a reason. They fade but never completely disappear. Although there are a variety of characters, the highlight is definitely the main two. Both of them are misfits in their own right without a real place to call home, and watching them slowly come to terms with their circumstances and finally finding that place they can call home is nothing short of beautiful. For a coming-of-age story, it doesn't get much better than this. This is Breaking Bad if instead of cancer, Walter's dick stopped working. And it's absolutely compelling. The writing is obviously not up to par with Breaking Bad's, but that's more Breaking Bad being on another level compared to most things. Regardless, watching this man's descent into the business of selling illegal ED drugs has been a wild ride, and I'll be sticking around to see his conclusion. The next one is from Ilyes, who asked me to read Gyakusatsu Happy End. Frankly speaking, Makoto's life sucks. Abandoned by his mother, he works endlessly, trying to scrape up enough funds to afford treatment for his younger sister's terminal illness, only to have that very money stolen by his unemployed dad. Yet despite everything, Makoto continues on, eventually grasping onto a single sliver of hope. A donor for his sister's treatment has been found, and in 1 month's time, they'll undergo the operation. However, fate is a cruel mistress, because when Makoto wakes up the very next morning, he finds that the previous day is repeating. And although the days repeat for him and everyone else, the same cannot be said for his sister. If he doesn't find a way out of this time loop soon, his sister will die before receiving her treatment. His anger, panic, and despair growing, Makoto spirals out of control and in the spur of the moment, discovers that if he kills a person, time will move forward a single day, posing an interesting moral question that weighs the life of his sister to 30 other people. Unfortunately, the amount of people he has to kill is also the number of plot holes the manga has. I was pretty hooked from the start, but it quickly devolved into showing messed up things for the sake of it, which it does pretty well. However, I wanted it to delve deeper into its premise rather than turn into dead tube with a little more substance. The next manga is Witch Hat Atelier, which was recommended by Eyes Don't Cry. I absolutely love this manga. Coco's enthusiasm, her eyes filled with innocent wonder, her unwavering curiosity for magic, and her longing to become part of that world took me all the way back to my childhood. By the time I was 9, I had reread the entire Harry Potter series 5 separate times. Magic is supposed to do the impossible. Anything your imagination can think of, it can achieve. I was infatuated by it. So, when Witch Hat starts revealing how magic works in their world, the neurons in my brain started firing like crazy. Magic is drawn with a special ink in a circle called a seal. That's it. What's interesting is when you build upon it. Draw a bad circle and your magic will be unstable. Draw a larger circle and your magic will be more powerful. Put a sigil in the middle to decide what type of magic it will be. And then start adding some of the 35 keystones to adjust how your magic comes out. And these are just the ones that have been identified. The possibilities are already endless, and I haven't even told you about keystone inversion, linked spells, nested glyphs, and spell toggling. Magic can do anything, and when I mean anything, it also means in some not so good ways. Think Nita from Full Metal Alchemist. That's all I'm gonna say. Forbidden magic and rules exist. Watching Coco delve deeper into her study of magic, discovering that it isn't all sunshine and rainbows, oftentimes questioning her admiration and love for it, while also learning of the relentless unfairness of their world, only made me fall in love with this manga even more. With Dungeon Meshi and Fragrant getting the anime adaptations they deserve and blowing up in popularity, I cannot state how much I am looking forward to Witch Hat's turn when it airs next year. Our last recommendation is from Slippy, who recommended Hiroi. This is by the same author of Nora and Weeds, but if it wasn't for their art style, I don't think you would be able to tell. While Nora and Weeds had a heavy atmosphere, Hiroi is one of the most heartwarming and calming manga I have ever read. It's because Hiroi is the aftermath of the battle the author, Keigo Shinzo, had against cancer, which he was diagnosed with towards the end of Nora and Weeds. After triumphantly beating cancer, as a life-threatening situation often does, his entire outlook on life changed. Hiroi isn't really about anything in particular. The main character lives his life day to day, with little ambition to get promoted or to find a better job. To many, it seems like he's wasting his time, but to him, he's completely satisfied. In our world where it's constantly shoved down our throats that you should always strive for more, to become someone or something, I think this is a great thing to showcase. Society might see him as a failure, but there is never a moment where he isn't smiling. Success isn't about how much money you make or how hard you work. It's about being able to wake up in the morning and enjoy the rest of your day. It's having that freedom to go on that walk that eases your mind, to look at that beautiful view that warms your heart, or to down that beer with a friend over a nice hot meal. In a world that often feels suffocating with the expectations everyone places on us, Hiroi highlights that at the end of the day, everything will probably be okay. It might not be what you expected 5 to 10 years ago, but the most important thing is that you are here, alive, working through each day as they come and trying to make the most out of every single one. Special thanks to John Jaton, Dave, and Rukes for sticking around. If you would like to support me financially, please kindly check out my Patreon. It starts at $3, and every month from now on, I'll be taking 2 recommendations from there and uploading early mini versions of this video. I'll still be taking recommendations from YouTube in several months, and then eventually compiling everything and uploading a video just like this one. I'll also be doing some tutorials and advice on editing. If you have any requests, let me know. I still read 99% of my comments. Thank you for watching, and always remember to take care of yourself. Goodbye!